There is a man the entire world tries to control. A man who does not need money, does not seek applause, does not bow to rules or expectations, and paradoxically, it is exactly this man who most frightens society in today's video. You will discover why the man who needs nothing is the greatest threat to any system. According to Carl Jung and Machiavelli, get ready, because what you are about to hear may change the way you see power, freedom, and control forever. If topics such as psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel. The modern system does not exist to satisfy you. It was not created to offer fulfillment, achievement, or freedom. On the contrary, it survives on your lack, on your constant sense of incompleteness. Every product, every service, every stimulus you receive, from notifications on your phone to advertisements on all screens, has been strategically designed to remind you that you are not enough. And it is precisely this that keeps the world turning. You want, you run, you consume. Without this lack, the machinery rusts and the system loses control. A man who recognizes his fulfillment within silently breaks this machinery, simply by refusing to play the game of need. What is subtler and more frightening, however, is that the system does not need you to perceive the manipulation. It works invisibly, infiltrated in your daily routine, in your ambitions, and in your fears. It feeds the illusion that you need more approval, more attention, more recognition, more material goods, while reinforcing the idea that happiness will only be achieved through the external. Every like, every comment, every compliment or criticism functions as a control wire. You become predictable, manipulable, a prisoner of a hunger that is not yours, but that has been implanted in you. The system survives on your dependence, not your strength. Jung already warned that the greatest enemy of modern man is himself, or rather, the absence of self-knowledge. The modern world tries to occupy you so that you do not look inward. If you look, you will realize how much of who you think you are has been shaped by external expectations, social standards, and imposed desires. The system needs you to keep fleeing from your own soul, because an individual who knows himself is immune to manipulation. He does not chase status, does not beg for approval, does not yield to manufactured fears. He becomes a flaw in the control matrix, a silent but profound threat. Advertising and the media are the most visible arms of this control. Every ad, every product, every promise is a way to keep you in a state of emotional and psychological dependence. You are not enough is the underlying message guiding this entire operation. The corporate world and the market sell not only products, but identities and validations. A new car, a phone, designer clothes, an online course, everything is sold as if it were essential to your personal value. But the value they sell is illusory. It is fuel to keep you dependent and distracted, always looking outward for fulfillment. Politics works the same way, but even more strategically. Leaders and systems of power depend on fear and hope to maintain control over the masses. They need you to feel vulnerable, fragile, incapable of managing your own life. If you believe salvation comes from outside, if you feel powerless without external authority, you will continue obedient, cooperative, and predictable. The system constructs a narrative of permanent need because self-sufficient and complete citizens represent a real danger. They do not bend, they do not obey, and they do not sell themselves. The man who needs nothing breaks this logic. He does not wait for approval, does not seek applause, does not fear solitude. He does not depend on external systems to validate his existence because he has already found completeness within himself. Every attempt at manipulation fails in front of him. What frightens is not his physical strength or his power of destruction, but his silent immunity. He represents the opposite of everything the system has built. Someone who cannot be bought, seduced, or controlled, simply because he lacks nothing. This lack that the system cultivates is not only material, but deep and psychological. The emptiness is programmed to generate anxiety, comparison, envy, and desire. It keeps people running after goals that were not chosen by them, but imposed by the collective. This is how the machinery of the world turns. You feel that you need to prove yourself, that you need to achieve, that you need to belong, and this feeling keeps the cycle of control intact. The man who recognizes that he needs none of this becomes an uncomfortable mirror for all those living in scarcity, revealing the artificiality of the game. Finally, the system fears this man not because he is rebellious or aggressive, but because his inner freedom is uncontrollable. He does not participate in the spectacle of lack. There is no lever that moves him. He is a living reminder that no one needs what the system offers to be whole. His mere existence questions the value of all created dependence, and this is why such a man is considered dangerous. He does not destroy the system with violence or protest. He disarms it with wholeness and presence. The power of this man lies in his self-sufficiency. Psychologically, he is complete. Morally, he does not bow. Intellectually, he thinks for himself. He does not react to manipulation, does not submit to false promises, does not depend on external validation. And it is this total independence that makes him the greatest threat to society, because where there is completeness, there is no control. The system, which survives on your lack, finds in him its invisible enemy, silent, constant, and absolutely unshakable. The man who needs nothing represents a paradox that the modern system can never control. He does not seek approval, does not fear rejection, and is not driven by external ambition. While everyone runs after validation, status, money, and power, he remains rooted in himself, observing the world without being pulled by it. This complete psychological autonomy creates a disconcerting presence. He becomes a living reflection of what everyone avoids confronting, their own inner lack. And precisely because he reveals this flaw in the collective mechanism, he is the greatest silent threat to the social machinery. According to Carl Jung, the modern individual is constantly distracted so that he does not turn inward. The system depends on people running after external rewards because a man who looks at his own soul realizes that much of his life of scarcity and anxiety is fabricated. He understands that the need for approval, belonging, or wealth does not arise from a genuine desire, but from a social programming that aims to keep him vulnerable and manipulable. By achieving self-sufficiency, he becomes immune to these manipulations, and this immunity is perceived by the system as a critical flaw, an impossible gap to fill. Machiavelli, centuries earlier, already understood the logic of control. To govern, he taught that the masses needed to be kept in a state of dependence and uncertainty. If people felt complete, satisfied, or secure, no manipulation would be possible. Every citizen needed to fear something and desire something he did not possess, because it is in this cycle of scarcity and expectation that authority thrives. The man who needs nothing breaks this fundamental rule. He does not fear, does not wait, does not desire, and therefore cannot be controlled, becoming an invisible but concrete threat to established power. The strength of this man does not lie in violence, rebellion, or direct confrontation. It lies in the silent integrity of his presence. He does not need titles, wealth, or followers, and this provokes discomfort in systems that survive on the opposite. Every time someone realizes that it is possible to exist without depending on external stimuli, a fissure appears in the carefully constructed building of collective need. Society, accustomed to measuring success and value by external signs, feels threatened by those who have already transcended the need to prove anything to anyone. On a psychological level, Jung would call this freedom individuation, the process of becoming the self, of integrating shadow and persona, of reconciling internal desires with external realities. The man who completes this journey is not driven by lack nor by fear. He acts according to his essence, not expectations. And this is why he represents strategic danger. Economic, political, and cultural systems rely precisely on the perpetuation of lack. A complete being breaks the cycle and shows that structures of control are not natural but artificial. Economically, the impact is equally profound. The culture of consumption, so central to the maintenance of the market, depends on individuals constantly feeling insufficient. The man who needs nothing stops buying what he does not need, stops investing in false status, stops feeding algorithms that profit from his lack. He is incorruptible, not because he is superior, but because he does not depend on what the system offers. This independence creates a domino effect. Those who observe often feel inspired to question their own dependence, further weakening the logic that sustains the market. Politically, he also becomes a problem. Leaders and rulers rely on obedience and fear of the masses to stay in power. The man who needs nothing is not manipulated by promises of security, rewards, or punishments. He remains unchanged in the face of threats and persuasion. In this sense, he's the opposite of the controllable citizen that Machiavelli described. No one can buy him, intimidate him, or coerce him because he does not participate in the game of fear and hope. He is free, and this freedom, silent and firm, destabilizes entire systems. Finally, the greatest threat of this man is not external, but symbolic. He represents the possibility of completeness, showing everyone that the scarcity they feel is largely artificial. He does not need to overthrow governments, destroy institutions, or rebel. His very existence proves that control depends on your lack. Every step he takes, every independent decision, every moment of silent self-sufficiency is a reminder that real power is not at the top of external pyramids, but within every individual who chooses to depend on nothing outside themselves. The man who needs nothing is dangerous because he breaks the invisible control mechanism that sustains all of society. He does not participate in the game of scarcity, does not chase status, does not fear rejection, and does not desire approval. Every attempt by the system to manipulate him fails because he has already become independent of external stimuli. The threat is neither physical nor aggressive. It is silent, strategic, and absolutely subversive. He demonstrates, simply by existing, that it is not necessary to obey, compete, or submit to be complete. This danger first manifests in the psychological sphere. While most people live distracted, fleeing from themselves and trying to fill voids with objects, applause, and validation, he is centered, fulfilled, and autonomous. Jung would call this individuation, the integration of the shadow, the persona and internal opposites, achieving a wholeness that does not depend on external approval. The modern system, which relies on emotional scarcity and social anxiety, perceives this man as a structural flaw because he is no longer subject to the rules that keep everyone else in line. On an economic level, the man who needs nothing is even more subversive. He does not feed algorithms that profit from his lack, does not consume status, and does not follow programmed trends. While everyone competes for attention, goods, and recognition, he remains incorruptible, independent, and unaltered. Every act of self-sufficiency is a reminder that much of consumption and the relentless pursuit of material power is unnecessary. He shows that it is possible to exist and prosper without depending on the system that sustains others' lack. Politically, his presence is equally disconcerting. Rulers and systems of power rely on fear and hope to keep the population submissive. They promise protection, offer rewards, and threaten punishments, but the man who needs nothing ignores these strategies. He does not bow to promises, does not fear sanctions, and does not expect favors. He is, therefore, impossible to manipulate, and this represents a direct threat to any power structure that depends on collective obedience. The power of this man lies, above all, in his ability to inspire. He does not seek followers nor desire leadership. Yet, his independence attracts attention and respect. Those who observe his self-sufficiency begin to question their own needs and dependencies. He functions as a disturbing mirror, showing that the vulnerability manufactured by society is optional, that anxiety and the relentless pursuit of approval are not inevitable. This silent psychological effect has the potential to destabilize mentally and socially thousands of people without him needing to act directly. The man who needs nothing is also dangerous because he breaks patterns of emotional manipulation. Modern society relies on controlling emotions, stimulating lack, fear, envy, and desire. Every impulse of anxiety or search for validation is carefully orchestrated to keep people occupied and predictable. But one who has found inner completeness does not react to these stimuli. He remains calm, unshakable, and whole. He not only protects himself, but also reveals that most external pressures are artificial and manipulable. Furthermore, he directly challenges the logic of social power. Most people conform to norms, rules, and expectations because they fear exclusion or desire acceptance. He, however, does not need to be accepted to be complete. This makes his internal freedom a silent weapon because no one can buy, seduce, or intimidate him. He is incorruptible not out of pride or arrogance, but because of self-sufficiency. It is this absolute neutrality in the face of power that makes him an invisible disruptive force, impossible to predict or control. Finally, the man who needs nothing is dangerous because he exposes the fragility of the system itself. Every act of independence, every demonstration of self-sufficiency is a reminder that the social machinery, built on dependence, fear, and desire, is artificial and manipulable. He does not need to destroy, protest, or shout. It is enough to exist, fulfilled, and unshakable. This is why Jung and Machiavelli recognize in him a real threat. Not a man of external revolution, but a silent earthquake at the heart of control, capable of dismantling the logic that keeps society hostage to its own lack. The first step to becoming a man who needs nothing is to deeply understand that most of what you desire is not truly yours. Looking at yourself honestly means realizing that many of your dreams, ambitions, and anxieties are implanted by the world around you. Jung warned that society and culture shape desires and expectations to keep you occupied, dependent, and predictable. The free man begins by observing these influences, identifying what is external and what truly comes from within. The second step is to confront your own shadow. Every fear, every trauma, every buried insecurity must be recognized and integrated. It is not about denying your flaws, but embracing them. The shadow contains all the energy the world tried to hide in you: anger, desire, ambition, vulnerability. By facing it without escape, you cease to be a hostage of these forces. Jung said that fleeing the soul is the shortest path to emotional imprisonment. The courage to look inward is the first step to freedom. The third step is to dismantle the persona. The persona is the mask we wear to please, to be accepted, to survive socially. It is comfortable to believe that this version of yourself is real, but it is only a character. The man who needs nothing removes the mask and accepts that his true identity lies beyond what others expect. He learns to live consistently with himself, without depending on others' approval, and discovers that freedom is not rebellion, but authenticity. The fourth step is to develop emotional independence. This means not depending on applause, praise, or criticism to feel value. He learns to be proud of himself without witnesses, to face solitude without fear, to walk alone without feeling empty. Emotional independence is the internal fortress that prevents the world from manipulating him. When you do not react to external validation or rejection, you become incorruptible because the modern system depends precisely on the opposite, your anxiety to be accepted. The fifth step is to find balance between internal opposites. In man, Jung points to the anima, sensitivity, intuition, vulnerability that society teaches to suppress. In the process of individuation, integrating these opposing forces is fundamental to becoming complete. It is not about dominating or denying parts of yourself, but about creating internal harmony. Full awareness of your own extremes allows you to act with coherence and strength, even in the face of external chaos. The sixth step is to master critical thinking. A man who needs nothing questions everything. Imposed truths, inherited norms, accepted dogmas. He learns to think for himself, to challenge conventions, and to rebuild beliefs from scratch. This does not mean blind rebellion, but absolute discernment. He does not confuse comfort with truth. He prefers to be shaken by reality rather than lulled by falsehood. This intellectual exercise strengthens his autonomy, making him less vulnerable to external manipulations. The seventh step is to act from integrity and consciously chosen morality. He does not live according to imposed standards, but according to an internal code tested, experienced, and accepted. Every decision is based on his principles, not on others' expectations. He walks alone if necessary, but never against himself. This absolute coherence makes him a silent symbol of resistance because no one can bend him with rewards or threats. The eighth and final step is to accept complete self-sufficiency. Here, freedom materializes. He needs nothing from the outside to be fulfilled. It is not about isolation, but deep integration with oneself. He observes the world, participates when he desires, but is never shaped by it. Upon reaching this level of fulfillment, he becomes truly dangerous to any system that depends on his dependence, because he is simply not manipulable. He is living proof that it is possible to exist fully without submitting to external structures of control. In the end, the man who needs nothing is not dangerous because he challenges others. He is dangerous because he shows the truth no one wants to face. That completeness does not depend on status, applause, or approval. He exists as a silent reflection, reminding everyone that much of what we pursue in life is superficial and imposed. And it is precisely this awareness that transforms anyone who follows this path into a force the modern world cannot control. Remember that true freedom is not loud rebellion, but deep self-sufficiency. It is born from internal exploration, confrontation with the shadow, integration of the persona, and internal opposites. When you stop seeking outside what can only arise from within you, you become immune to manipulation, incorruptible, and entirely master of your own destiny. This is the type of silent power Machiavelli and Jung recognized as incomparable because it depends on nothing external to exist. If you want to continue your journey to become this man who needs nothing, do not just follow examples, be an example. Subscribe to the channel now, activate notifications, and dive into content that will transform the way you think, feel, and act in the world. Because the path to freedom begins with the courage to look inward and the decision to never depend again on what comes from outside. These two videos in front of you are not here by chance. And if everything you believe about yourself is just a reflection of someone else's gaze, click now on one of the videos beside you and start breaking that mirror. You will have to risk the click. So which one will you choose?